Hello, hello. Welcome to this Tarot Tuesday live. Hope you guys are doing well. All right, so the energies are a little bit quieter today, I think, but it's kind of like the calm before the storm in terms of Mercury retrograde and a lot of communication energy, communication errors, and really bringing in the intent to actually cultivate better communication skills within this Mercury retrograde. So really looking at it like an opportunity to hone and improve your communication skills with others, because we can have, since there's so much going on in the collective, we can have a lot of miscommunication. We've already had a lot of miscommunication in the past. And right now it's really important for us to ask those closest to us for room to grow, because something that happens is one person will acknowledge that they have communication issues, or that they are working on their life, working on patterns and cycles that they want to improve on. And if another person isn't aware that that growth is happening and there's no space to evolve or grow, then it can actually be quite undercutting for other people to focus on the communication errors instead of focusing on communication solutions. And that is just a go-to. So we typically will go to what is wrong and blame or shame someone else instead of taking responsibility and or going, okay, I can see this person might be trying to improve, and so I'm going to give a little bit of space to do that. I'm going to focus on the positive qualities instead of the negative qualities. And instead of being judgmental and critical, I'm going to actually move into a space of compassion, still maintaining those healthy boundaries, but also providing enough space and room. Hey, Kathy, how you doing today? To allow room for growth, because if someone's trying to grow and you're just putting a bottle cap, on the bottle, then there's no space. So it does take two. It does take collaboration. It does take teamwork to actually evolve communication. So there has to be two willing parties to evolve communication. Even if one person is doing the active changing in terms of, I'm working on my communication, I'm taking courses to improve my boundaries, to be more assertive. And if the other person is someone in your life, they're going to reap the benefits of you improving your communication. However, if they're going to focus only on the old you and focus on those qualities and traits which aren't your best features, instead of what you're actually working towards improving, then it's actually going to negate your work, and you're going to have to practice and work with someone else so that is willing to give you room to grow and help support you in that. So, well, I hope the work day goes quick for you and that it's more calm energies today. We'll see what the tarot has to say, but hopefully your day goes well, Kathy. So the number one thing is communication, and really working on those responses and taking your time to listen and figure out what's not being said as well in order to respond. So trying not to react. And for me, I've noticed that I'm getting better at noting my body's response to a challenge or conflict. I get a real big adrenaline rush for me, and I automatically go heavy defense, like the sword is ready. And it's really detrimental if I react right away to something that puts me off balance or catches me off guard, especially if it's someone close to me. And if I hold them in high esteem, it's really challenging and difficult because they know where my buttons are. They know where the triggers are. And or if this is an emotional relationship that involves manipulation, that can also be someone who will know your triggers. So communication, taking time to respond, and asking the people around you for room to grow. I am working on my communication. I am asking for room to grow, room to improve. Please do not focus on my inadequacies in this improvement. Please focus on the improvements that I'm making. So you can ask for that. There's no harm in asking for that. But we are going through a gauntlet in terms of Mercury going retrograde. There will be communication, focus, and highlight. So let's do our best to approach these situations with forgiveness, compassion, healthy boundaries, being assertive, being clear, and really understanding what we want. I think that's everything. So let's just dive right into the reading. I asked for the intention of providing us interim information that wasn't provided from the weekly reading, because the weekly reading was, a good one. And so if you haven't caught that, catch the weekly reading. And you can also find me at Kindred Heart Tarot on Facebook. So I have booking sessions on there. There's also a link to PayPal if you'd like to leave a donation. Or if you are booking a session with me, you can actually pay through that PayPal link as well. So also, I did create a deck that is now available for purchase on Marketplace. So this is the Kindred Spirit Love Oracle. So it's a 77 card oracle deck, and I'll just give you, let's do one example of a card for today. So this is an example in the style that they are done in. Let's do this. Let's pick one for today. So what I've done is I've just done the title. So this was Disoriented, and then there's an actual write-up on the card because I didn't do a book. So it's actually, the deck is the book in terms of the information you're provided and the guidance you're provided. So you're experiencing a potent merging of past life energies, present cycles, and future possibilities. You are honoring more than one aspect of your true self and balancing the old and new energies. You are releasing an old identity and embracing a new one. You may need extra rest as you integrate two worlds. Isn't that the truth? So we've got a lot of energetic busyness happening. So even if you can't see what's going on the outside, you're going to feel it in your body. You might feel much more tired. You might need a lot more sleep. Or if you're in a challenging situation and you have had to make choices, because that's been a big thing, making choices for our highest and best, and you feel really disoriented. Actually, I called it spiritual vertigo. I should title that this. That's how I've been feeling. Spiritual vertigo, just really being challenged by using what's new instead of what's old in terms of making my decisions and asking myself to step up. So where I might have kind of hid before and not want to present myself fully to a situation and or invest fully in creative consciousness other than victim consciousness. So stay the same, stay in the comfort zone versus step out of the comfort zone and be really uncomfortable. That's where this disorientation is coming from and this spiritual vertigo. So if you are experiencing that, after you make one of those decisions or you come to a conclusion, take some time to rest, take some time to meditate and take care of yourself. All right, so here we go. This is for past position. We have yes, just say yes. So Spirit is bringing us opportunities. It might be friendships. It might be career opportunities. It might be business opportunities. It could be home opportunities. So buying a new home, moving into a new location. Just say yes. So we were asked to take opportunities. We were asked to take risks and move forward instead of doing the same thing. And so the Spirit is saying, yes, that is part of the energies that we had. So wanting us to be fearless in terms of moving forward, even if we don't know where we're going. And that is one of the new parts to this energy is we're blindfolded, but we're still moving forward because we were moving forward with the combination of our intellect, our physical body in terms of yes, no, how do we feel about that, and our intuition and spiritual guidance. So, yes, our clarifier for that is vulnerability. I allow myself to talk about my feelings without fear of external judgment or internal drama. When I express my feelings, a couple of funny things happen. I feel like a kindergartner. Everything gets lighter, easier, and filled with the comforting glow of honesty. Hey, no wonder kindergartners seemed so fun and stress-free. So, saying yes and taking a step in a direction that you still have unknown parameters around It's really brave and courageous, you guys. That's why a lot of people do not do it. They don't move, they change, they stay stagnant. They stay in the comfort zone and they don't push themselves to evolve, because sometimes it does take a push. It takes a risk. It takes a leap of faith in yourself, if not in the greater external world. So also getting comfortable with knowing your big yes. Is it a person? Yes or no. Is it a job? Yes or no, right? Really getting comfortable with your yes and your no. So understanding when you're in your vulnerability, it takes a lot of fine tuning and adjusting in order to understand why you feel vulnerable. And moving through that vulnerability is a huge process in gaining strength and reclaiming your power from past situations where you might have said yes when you wanted to say no, or you might have said no when you wanted to say yes. And so that kind of put off your balance in terms of when you would stand in your power in your vulnerability. So now you're kind of rebalancing the scales in terms of, okay, now I'm going to actually say yes when I mean yes, say no when I mean no, and understand that I can be vulnerable in both of those situations. And so it's getting comfortable with vulnerability, actually, getting comfortable with this unknown, with this uncertainty. And we have the butterfly beauty resonating to the number 7. So we have a lot of transformation, a lot of change, and it is suggesting that we've actually come through those phases of metamorphosis. So whereas before we were being crushed and turned into mushy goop, and it was horrifyingly painful, and there was a lot of grief, there was a lot of resentment, there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of issues from the past life energies, merging with the present, releasing massive cycles of codependency, of bondage, of powerlessness, of inferiority, really releasing a lot of parent-child dynamics where we had power plays and manipulation happening in our childhoods, and really dismantling that, going, no more. I am not repeating those patterns from my family line in my relationships and in my life anymore, as much as you possibly can, as much of it that you have actually pulled up from the depths into your awareness. You are actually working with that and dismantling it and moving on to something new, something that actually suits you and your growth, rather than tying off loose ends from a lineage that couldn't do it themselves. So yes, every single part, every single person matters in terms of the web. However, you're the one actually saying no, and you're the one who's actually changing the pattern for history and for the future generations to come, no matter if you have children or not. So this butterfly, it also, when you think of it, every stage we go through, there's a new level of vulnerability. So when the, caterpillar is in the chrysalis and blah, 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 super vulnerable, but also when the butterfly comes out and is flying around, also vulnerable. So there's these phases of vulnerability that we're going through, and each of them is a little bit different, but we're being asked now to actually shine our light in our vulnerability and to actually take action and move. Right? That's one of the things too. The caterpillar moves really, really, really slow and takes stock of everything. And its body is picking up the vibrations. And it's really counting on not being eaten, because I don't think it has too many defense, mechanisms. And then you're in the crystals, you're not moving. You're actually inactive, but there's so much change happening when you're not moving. And that is what has been happening for the past 9 months, like a full 9-month gestation period for us. It's totally crazy. At least that's what's happened in my life. It literally is 9 months. It's bonkers. So now we actually have movement. So it's okay, we've been stagnant. We've been in the hanged man position for quite some time, learning, looking back, transmuting, alchemizing our pain, looking at what didn't work, looking at how others behaved with us, looking at our role in that, taking responsibility and maneuvering ourselves in our own lifetime in a way in which we want to move forward progressively. And this butterfly is saying, okay, we've started that movement. We've started to fly. So let's see what we are flying into. Fill up your well. Retreat, rest, refuel. All right, so we still are in this mode where it's almost like for every action, there's a reaction in terms of our rest. So we don't have this infinite energy at this point in time in terms of, I think, just the pure amount of energy flux happening and flow from the collective, where if you are a light worker, starseed, someone who is filtering and processing and grounding and anchoring in those energies, whereas before you might have been able to anchor that and kind of go on with your daily business and not necessarily have to meditate, ground, have salt baths, go out in nature a lot more. Now it's actually for every day you have to clear every day, or even every couple of hours, depending on how sensitive you really are. You'll have to take stock of what that means for you. But for me, I know now, I used to be a little bit arrogant in terms of my clearing and think, oh no, I'm just naturally clearing all the time. I don't need to clear consciously. No, I do. So I recognize that now. I have to clear at night. So I have to clear out the baggage from the day that's not mine. And I have to clear in the morning after my dreams, because we're processing a lot in our dreams right now. So you might note in your dreams, you will be having conversations that you can't have in real life, so to speak, because you're actually setting the stage for real conversations that are coming up. So you're learning how that works in your dreamscape, even if you can't remember it, in preparation for some big communication coming in the next couple months for you, because there's big changes that requires big communication and new styles of communication. So it's going to be interesting, but Spirit is saying continue to rest. Even though we're flying, you still need nutrients, you still need sustenance. So please take care of yourself in terms of meeting your needs and fueling yourself in powerful and positive ways, instead of getting distracted and torn down by sex addiction, drugs, alcohol, food addiction, and really going down that spiral. If you step off, the track, that's fine. Put yourself back on the track and continue to move forward. However, Spirit is, reminding us that if we choose in those moments where we still have a lot of power in that choice to take care of ourselves, it's much easier to navigate this future path and current path in those energies, rather than if we continue to make the choice of addiction or lower energies. And that can include TV programs or books that actually you notice bring your energy down. Like for me, I can no longer watch highly dramatic or violent shows, because then I actually have nightmares and it brings my energy down. I actually do have to balance and make sure that I'm watching lighthearted, like funny programs in order to balance my energies. So that's something to be aware of if you're constantly going to a certain energy frequency for a TV program or a book. Maybe switch it up and just note your energy shifts and changes. But this is a warning. If you don't rest, if you don't regenerate, if you don't fill up your well, you may not have the best chance at navigating these energies that are coming through. So it's actually the wisest and best choice to take care of yourself now and continue to practice self-care and how you can take care of yourself better and better every day that goes by. So continuing to evolve in terms of how you can love yourself more and take better care of yourself more. So even a tiny little one is, for me, my skin is super sensitive. And so when I do my lives, usually I will put on some eyeshadow and mascara. And I noticed that it was really bothering my eyelids. And so I actually had like some, I don't know, eczema or something on my eyelids, and it's just bothering me. So I continued to put it on anyways. And then today I was just like, you know what? No, I'm not putting on makeup for you guys when my eyelids are like, no, stop, do not put on more makeup. So it's just a tiny little thing, and you guys will have little things like that too. And you have a choice of whether to, do something for someone else's approval, essentially me having makeup on to look better on camera for an audience, right? And clients, or just coming on here and being me with no makeup on, just do it. Do the dang thing. Take care of yourself. So let's see what the clarifying card for that is. Appreciation. We got our little crow buddies. All right. I appreciate the unique ways other people show their love rather than compare their ways with my ways. Then I appreciate myself for maturely putting up with people who just can't seem to show love the normal, obvious, universally accepted way. Good job, both of us. Okay. So another reason we need to rest and refuel is, so remember I was talking about giving other people room to grow. That includes ourselves, but it includes other people too. So if you are hoping other people are going to grow, and this can be anybody, not just anyone in particular, because that's attachment to a certain outcome. But if you're giving people in your life room to grow and you're leading by example, then there's this part where you're going to have to show a little bit of appreciation for the differences. If you cannot appreciate someone's differences, basically you're fucked, because then you're not valuing them for who they are. You're just wanting them to be more like you. And that really isn't acceptance. So if you can open your mind and create some space in that vulnerability and recognize how you feel when you're vulnerable and create safety. And this is something that for me, I need to create safety. I need to improve my communication because I do have shitty communication tactics. It was what my sister called it, communication tactics. Anyways, so we all have ways that we manipulate in communication, or ways that we fall back to from when we had to protect ourselves in certain situations, and when we weren't comfortable being vulnerable, when we did not have healthy boundaries. And so we learn to push people away, or we learn to use a silent treatment, or we learn to withhold our love or our attention in order to punish people. There's all sorts. There's a gamut of things that you will recognize. You will know what you do. And you might not use it all the time. I'm just saying that this is something in your storehouse that might come up in fueled or heated moments where we're going into this Mercury retrograde communication gauntlet with the eclipses, and you're going, oh shit, you will be tested. And so this is the time to practice. Every single communication you have with people, interaction, this is practice. So don't think you're not being watched in terms of what you're doing, in terms of your communication with people. And are you coming from kindness, transparency, compassion, forgiveness, or are you going to actually skewer them? It's a question of who you are, not who they are. Who are you? What do you want to bring to the table in terms of your communication skills, and how you accept another person's differences, and how you appreciate other people's styles of communication, other people's styles of showing love, affection, gratitude. Think about the concept of the love languages and how we can appreciate little different things that other people bring to the table because they've had totally different experiences than us, and really start to cultivate acceptance and appreciation for the differences that we have in order to actually become more of a team and unite in more healthy conversation and communication skills. So I do think that's really going to help us, is to know that we're vulnerable, they're vulnerable. We need to create a safe space for ourselves through our healthy boundaries, but we can also give them a little bit of space to communicate and to show us where they're at. And if they show you where they're at isn't healthy for you, then you can also move your energy away, and you can communicate that. I see you're working on this, and I'm working on it too. So maybe let's take a little bit more time before we kind of re-engage in this conversation or whatnot, because I don't think it's at the level that I need it to be in order to have an effective, conversation or come to a solution on this or whatnot. So let's see what our clarifying card is. The dog. So number 10, we have some new beginnings. We have some new energies here, and that is what I've been talking about in terms of we're creating new pathways in our mind too. And that's something, if you think about addiction, part of what is happening is a physiological change in the brain, which is why it's not just, after a while when it becomes an addiction, then it's not just a choice anymore. It's a physiological drive, right? So in the same way, we're creating new pathways, neuron pathways. And that's hard because we're not relying on the same old, we're creating something new. So it's going to take a little bit of time to adjust. You guys, give yourself some time to adjust. Give yourself room to grow in your communication. So this one is loyalty, sincerity, and unconditional love. This is awesome. So one of the things with the dog energy, it's kind of cool. Actually, I think I'll just read it out. But one of the really interesting things with the dog energy is that, they're very loyal up until a certain point. So this can be talking about if we're having communication with someone who's betrayed us, broken our trust. It's a tricky one. It's a slippery slope because people have to earn your trust and they have to earn your loyalty in some form, right? So you are responsible for how you act in a relationship. That's your choice. But someone else, if you allow someone to break your trust over and over and over, then that's a boundary being broken. And then you're enabling that person to stay in your life to break your trust again. However, what we're being asked to do is appreciate some differences. We're being asked to make sure we are rested and refueled for any of these conversations or interactions or new beginnings. And to remain loyal to ourselves, first and foremost, to be sincere with ourselves in that yes or no energy I was talking about before, and that unconditional love for ourselves and others, but releasing the attachments, because you can unconditionally love someone. You can really love someone who hurt you and continue to not have them in your life, and that person can change and they might be able to show you that change. And I've talked about this in past readings. If someone has changed, you will be able to see it. You will be able to see proof, tangible proof in their life that they have changed. So if it's just words, if it's just lip service, then you might want to steer clear of that person until you can actually see tangible change. Otherwise, it might be the dog that finally snaps and turns on its owner, so to speak. So let's just read that one quickly here. The dog is the most loyal animal to human beings. When the dog appears on your path, he reminds you of this trait. Are you steadfast with your loved ones? Are you true to yourself and your dreams? Do you act with sincerity? It's very important that you do so now, for good fortune comes with a faithful dog as your companion. The dog loves sincerely without conditions and is happy to be part of a pack. Think about how you function in your community. Are you a loyal team player? Another issue the dog asks you to consider is the loyalty of others. If someone is being insincere, move on because he or she isn't meant to be in your pack. Ask the dog for a sign and your answer will be shown. Dog energy lives in your heart, so look there. That is awesome. So just be aware that it's kind of this paradox when we talk about unconditional love, because it's something so far out for us, realistically speaking, because we do have so many attachments, but you really can. And I think you guys are there in your spiritual evolution in terms of knowing you can love someone fully. You can love them with the full depths of your soul and still recognize that they aren't in a place to be loyal, to be sincere, to be truthful with you, and you cannot accept that. So you still hold that love for them, but you also still love that or hold that boundary for you because you're showing yourself unconditional love. So there's it's very interesting with the unconditioned and the boundaries, right? Because you might think the boundary is the condition, but realistically, the love is the underlying force under it all. So you can still maintain that and not have interactions with people. So appreciation, see where it goes, see what the truth is in your heart. Is this person loyal? Is this person sincere? If they are, try to cultivate some teamwork energy there, cultivate new ways of communicating, clear the air, find new closure, really understand where misunderstandings happened, what really happened. Maybe you'll have the opportunity to figure that out. Maybe you won't, because if you're dealing with an insincere person or someone who is not loyal, they won't give you that closure because they don't want to. It gives them power. So whatever, keep that power and tell them to keep that power and move on with your life, because realistically, those are ego games that you don't want to be a part of, right? So continue to be loving yourself. Don't let other people's lack of bring you down or make you change how you are, right? So that is usually what happens. Someone betrays you, and then you look at other people like you can't trust them. So yes, people do have to earn your trust. Who belongs in your pack and who does not? Those are safe questions to ask. And you can come to those questions from a place of balance and grounding. You don't have to be, like the feral dog who's looking out, at everyone as an attacker, right? So when we are first traumatized and we are first betrayed and our trust, is broken, then that is how we feel, paranoia, anxiety. Who can we trust? Is everyone a lying sack of shit? But once you move and you're healing your heart and you're trusting yourself again, so you're recultivating that relationship with yourself, then you can start moving into, okay, all right, I have power here. I choose who's in my pack and who's not. I choose to put people, through a little bit of time so that they can show me their true colors. I use discernment and I listen to the truth of what they're saying and what they're not saying. And now I actually dig deeper. And actually we can use that because doggies dig, baby. So I dig deeper. I dig for the truth. No face value here. No, we are beyond that. So I'm not taking anything at face value anymore. No. Learn my lesson. So looking into the future, this is not a surprise, and you guys are going to have a little chuckle. Boundaries. Where do you need to establish better boundaries? We are still working on this, shiznit. Isn't it going to be fantastic when we do a reading and boundaries don't come up? But this is saying that we are still improving our boundaries. So continue to be confident in your ability to see through people's bullshit. That is now a gift that you have. That is now a power that you have. So if you smell bullshit, don't just ignore it now. Be like, okay, I smell bullshit for a reason. Why are you bullshitting me? Like, what is that about for you? Because I don't really have room for that in my life right now. I understand why it's happening, but if you don't, then we have a problem. So there we go. And also other people might push your boundaries, and you might have to ask yourself, okay, is this boundary here out of protection? Is this a rigid, inflexible boundary, or is this a healthy, flexible boundary? Like if circumstances or situations change, is that boundary able to change? Or is this just a very rigid, full-on boundary of protection that nobody gets through, right? So you have to be willing to look at your boundaries too and ask, why are they there? Where did they come from? Did you consciously put them there? Is it healthy? Is it nurtured? Is it flexible? Or is it rigid and long-standing from something from the past that's actually going to be affecting things poorly in the future? So really ask yourself what's going on with your boundaries, because you do also have to look at yourself and what you're open to receiving. Because if you have like a big fortress built around you, then it's going to be more difficult for somebody new or a friend to come in and be like, hey, can we talk about this? Or maybe I've noticed something about the way you talk with me. I'm not happy about it. And if you're really sensitive to criticism, you might not be willing to see that as a helpful gesture or a way you can improve. You might look at it from a defensive standpoint and be angry instead at someone who brings something forward. So this is where humility and that teamwork energy also comes through. If you have a loyal friend who comes to you and says, look, you're being I was going to say bitch, but if a loyal friend says, hey, you're being a little sharp, or, I can feel you're being defensive and it's putting me off and it's bringing my energy down, or you're dumping on me in conversation and you're not asking permission first. So if you go to a friend and you're like, blah, and you just dump all your stuff on them and you didn't ask, hey, do you have time to listen? I have some deep stuff I want to, go through. Then you didn't ask permission. You actually have just crossed a boundary. And they, depending on how their boundaries are, they might call you out on it or not, right? So they might enable that in you or not. And this is how boundaries do need to be a little bit flexible here, right? You can have these conversations with really good friends and just come back to that energy of compassion and giving ourselves room to grow. So our friends need room to grow. We need room to grow. Other people need room to grow. We still have to discern whether they're loyal or sincere or insincere or not. So just hold on to that. It's a lot to hold on to. So let's see what our clarifier is for those boundaries. Compliments. I know how good it feels to get a compliment, so I give that gift to others. I'll find a nice compliment for everyone I interact with today, even if I have to think really hard about it. In which case, I can follow up by complimenting myself for solving such a compliment puzzle. Wow, I am skilled. So there you go. Instead of looking at everything that's wrong with people and how you could do it better, look at the fact that we're all doing our best and we're all working on setting these boundaries. And sometimes what happens, I'm just going to insert this here because I'm being guided to. Hold on. Sometimes what happens when people are just learning boundaries, and this happened to me, they go from one side of the spectrum to the other. So say in their life, someone took advantage of them. And then you come in and you slightly maybe hit a boundary or a trigger, and they go whoosh, and they chop off your head. So, and you're like, whoa, I did not deserve that. I get where you're coming from, but that was like a little bit overkill. Just note that sometimes that can happen when people are just putting up their boundaries for the first time. They've always said yes. If they have seen themselves as powerless, like if someone's like, hey, let's do this, and they're like, okay, and they don't say no, they choose to say yes, right? And then they might say, all these people take advantage of me. No, you are letting yourself down because you're not saying no. So you are taking advantage of yourself, basically. So just note that there can be kind of that whiplash energy for people who are just starting to learn to be vulnerable. And then, of course, there's the other side where when you're just starting to learn to be vulnerable, you might not have boundaries. So be open having these conversations with people. Like, how are your boundaries? These are mine. What are yours like? And try to build people up. This is not a time to be picking on people and being petty. Really, let's get rid of pettiness for this Mercury retrograde, okay? Because I just had a teeny tiny taste of it, and it's just a real big energy loss, okay? So if we can really step up our game in our communication, in our compassion, in our response, in our boundaries, in our loyalty to ourselves, first and foremost, and then our loyalty to others, we can find that energy to give compliments. We can find that energy to be like, you know what, I'm really proud of you for actually bringing that to my attention, that I stepped on your boundary or whatnot, right? Like, I can appreciate that. I can understand where you're coming from. And I'll work on that too, or whatever it is for you. But compliments help uplift people. One of my guides always said, never lift someone up, because then you're taking on the burden of their shit. But if you can uplift people by being you can uplift people by giving compliments and telling them, thank you so much for doing that. You do your job really well. So Kathy, you do your job awesome. You did a great job today. I really appreciate your assertiveness, or I really love the way you interact with clients. So it's, there we go. Start building people up, because we need to shine our light. We need to be brave. And we need to step into our truth and our loyalty to that energy of love and compassion, because there's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of resentment. And when we come out of these energies where we are focused on our wounds, we are looking at the past, we are entrenched in it. Then we come out of that and we're like, we're a butterfly. It's hard to not be like, everyone's horrible, I'm going to hide in a cave now. No, the point is to take a look at the other butterflies, take a look at their colors, take a look at their transformation, at the power it took for them to change and transform. It might not be in the same way as you. We all are on different parts on our path, but coming from a place of understanding that vulnerability, cultivating safety in our relationships, and appreciation in our relationships goes such a long way. And then to follow that up with complimenting people on a job well done, fuck yeah. That is the energy I'm talking about. All right, let's see what our clarify. Oh, shit. No! Okay, all right. I was so stoked there for a minute, you guys. You saw it. All right. So this is why we need those boundaries, and this is why we need to focus on the positive, because we have some angry little people. We have some full-on ego shit going on. So this is the goblin. And the goblin actually came up in Colette Baron Reed's weekly tarot as well. And it came up in my personal reading too. How surprising. Anyways, so this is all about the wounded human ego resonating to the number 4. And 3-1 might mean something to you. In this deck, actually, the owl, which is wisdom and deception, is the number 13. So 13 and 31 in this deck have the owl, which is deception, wisdom, and the goblin, which is the human ego. So this is connected to boundaries and compliments, right? So when we're vulnerable and when we're in this energy of change and transformation, and we're kind of moving away from some of the ego dramas of the past, but we're moving into a more spiritually, I guess, maybe we don't need to call it spiritual, because, let's just call it balanced. We're more balanced in ourselves. We can get triggered, like our egos. That's where when I get triggered and I'm like, rah, and I get my sword out, partly Aries, partly my personality, but definitely ego, right? That is not my spirit, right? My true self. It is the ego that has been jabbed or prodded or poked or pushed over the edge, and the goblin comes out. And the goblin isn't necessarily about anybody else. It's about their ability to bring out the goblin in you. So it's about their ability to mirror or project their goblin and or entice your goblin to come out to play. So I'm going to read this one, and then that's going to be the end of the reading here. If you guys haven't already, please like and subscribe to my page. Help me grow. Help me share my gifts. And if you want, you can donate to my channel. It's not necessary, and I want to thank everyone who has donated to my channel in the past. It's very appreciated. And here we go. So when the goblin appears on your path, your plans are, and this is in our future position, guys, are about to go awry. The goblin wants to lead you astray and whispers the negative spell of fear, anger, resentment, self-righteousness, arrogance, selfishness, greed, gluttony, procrastination, and addiction. When the goblin appears, it's time to stop what you're doing and check your motives. Are you coming from an ego-centered place? So we have the ego, right? It doesn't just disappear. For like, oh, I'm spiritual now. Your ego just doesn't disappear. It's there. It's like a governor for you, right? It's here for a reason. So is it centered or is it not, right? Is it in balance, or are you coming from a really egotistic place, right? Are the circumstances in your life triggering unresolved past issues that need healing? Yeah. Now is the time for self-evaluation and taking inventory before you take another step. The goblin represents the wounded ego and its influence. Dark, repressed areas of the psyche get triggered, either in you or warning you of a dynamic between you and someone else. Do nothing. Stay still. Send loving energies to yourself and others, and remember the divine connection in all things. The goblin will disappear and lose power when you focus on love and fairness. So when we're focusing on fairness, and that's partially what boundaries are, right? We're making sure things are fair for us and fair for them. So someone's not taking advantage of us and we're not taking advantage of someone else. That is basically what boundaries are. So, and when we're focusing on complimenting someone and when we're appreciating their differences and appreciating their vulnerabilities, it might be a little bit easier for us to go, okay, I just triggered someone's ego. I'm just going to be silent and listen to what their response is going to be right now. Because this isn't about me necessarily. This is more to do with them and what I've just triggered. Or vice versa. If you find yourself in that situation where you're triggered and you want to retaliate, or you just feel that old pattern coming up, just stop and go, oh, okay, that's the old pattern. My ego is triggered. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to take a time out, because it's not worth retaliating to that person because they're in their ego, and then you're going to engage back with your ego. And then what? Total loss of energy. Lose situation. If you step back and you go, okay, there's some wounding here. I'm going to listen. What's this actually about? Because you're using your intuition, because you can see the bullshit. And when someone's coming real heavy in ego, this could be like real blame for something you never did, or they're going off information that's missing, and you're like, that is not the truth. That did not happen. Well, take some time and go, whoa, this person has some illusions that they're working with, right? And this isn't my shit to carry. Someone gossiped or someone spread lies and that person chose to believe them, or whatever it is, right? So you don't have to engage in setting the record straight right then and there. You can say, wow, I believe there has been a miscommunication here, and I'm just going to let you calm down because I don't want to engage with you when you're this angry, or I don't want to make things worse. So I'm just going to take a couple days, or I'm going to take 12 hours, or I'm going to take a night, or I'm going to take a couple hours. I'm going to go for a walk, and I'll meet back up with you in a little bit, and then we'll talk about it then. How's that sound? So we're really learning new ways to disengage, actually, when we go head-to-head in ego battles and conflicts, because that was what we did in the past, when ego. And now it's like, okay, we can recognize now when someone else is coming from ego. We can recognize when we're coming from ego. And now we're learning what to do about it. So this is going to be a journey. This is going to be a challenge in terms of learning how to interact with people when they're learning to be vulnerable, how we can learn to appreciate others' differences more so that we have more of a storehouse to steer clear of those ego imbalances, and we can balance that ego. Because the more appreciative we are, the more complimentary we are to people, the less we're really focusing on their inadequacies or their weaknesses. We can actually embrace their strengths a little bit more. And I don't know about you guys, but if someone looks at me and they're like, oh, and they start pointing out all my weaknesses, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be like, not impressed. I will not be impressed with that person, because the approach, right? It might be true. I might like recognize, oh yeah, that is true about myself. However, you're not just going to let someone walk all over you. And so your reaction is going to be to the sword and defense. So shield, sword, and you're not going to get anywhere like that. So this is for both sides, right? In terms of instigator and recipient, wherever you are on this scale, just note that it's time to not disengage, but what is it called? Disarm? Disarm someone by meeting them with love and compassion versus retaliating with whatever they're giving you. So if someone gives you the cold shoulder and you give them the cold shoulder back, that's really going to solve a lot. If someone calls you an asshole and then you just like, well, you're an asshole, then that's actually going to accomplish a lot too. So, I'm just saying we are going to have some communication challenges, and be aware of where this is triggered in you and other people. And if that is triggered in you, if your goblin comes out to play, then just go, okay, my goblins come out to play, and I'm going to go get an ice cream with it, and then we're going to come back later when it's settled down more into a fairy. All right. So I know some of that sounds a little bit crazy, but for real, this is very serious topics. I'm just coming at it at a little bit more of a lighthearted perspective, but we really do need to be responsible for our energy, and it can be difficult sometimes when we're learning to change. And I'm speaking from personal experience here, because I need to change, and I'm willing to change, and I'm willing to grow, and I do need space to do that as well. So if you lovely beings who have joined me for this live today, if you would want a card pull, let me know. I think I'll pull from the fairy deck because I was going to use it, but I didn't end up using it today. But if you'd like a personal message, just put yes, please in the comments, and I'll be happy to pull a personal message for you. And if you feel comfortable, share my video, share my message, help me reach more people and create a bigger community. And thank you very much for tuning in. I hope your shift goes well, Kathy. And if you haven't been on my channel before, just know that usually I do pull personal cards at the very end for people who want just a quick one card pull. I just do that for a little bit of fun. So it doesn't look like anyone is interested in a card pull today. So it looks like that is everything. But thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciated you guys being on today, and I love it when you comment. And so I will catch up with you guys, I guess, on Saturday. And I believe it's a new moon and the solstice and an eclipse. So that one's going to be a good one. So I'm glad that we touched into this energy today, because this was that little interim report on how to approach communication this week. So it's really important that we are on our A game and that we stay balanced. So lots of love to you guys. Take care, and take care of yourselves. Ciao.